In the early 1980s, when the world was captivated by the glittering promises of prosperity and the American dream, one man's voice rang out louder than any other. Jimmy Swaggart, the preacher who was born in the humblest of circumstances, would rise to embody the hopes and aspirations of millions. His story was not one of royalty or wealth, but of fiery ambition and unyielding faith. The son of a preacher, Swaggart's path to greatness seemed inevitable. He began his ministry in Louisiana, but soon his fervent sermons, passionate delivery, and a unique combination of music and preaching propelled him to the national stage. People called him a modern-day prophet. His ministry swelled with thousands attending his revivals and millions tuning in to his TV broadcasts. His words brought many to tears. His music soothed broken hearts. And his charismatic presence led people to believe that God's kingdom on earth had indeed come. The message was simple yet profound. Salvation was not far away. All one had to do was believe. Swaggart's voice became a symbol of hope for the desperate, the broken, the lost. He preached not only to the believers but also to the skeptics and the doubters. People saw the power of his message, and for a time, his influence seemed unshakable. His empire grew. The Jimmy Swaggart Ministries expanded into a global force, with churches, television shows, and international outreach. His income was soaring, and the world seemed to be at his feet. Yet despite his outward success, there was a storm brewing in the darkness, a storm that none could foresee. Do you believe that God can redeem you? Do you believe that His grace is sufficient for you? Do you believe His mercy endures forever? Do you believe He will wash away your guilt, impurities, and will take you back like the prodigal son? Drop a comment below. I believe in the power of God's grace, and share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that God is merciful and still answers prayer. In 1987, when Jimmy Swaggart's name was known by millions and his ministry had reached heights few could imagine, the very foundations he built his empire on began to crack. The world would learn of his secret life, a life filled with lies, betrayal, and shame. It was a life that stood in stark contrast to the public image he had so carefully crafted. The news hit like a bombshell. Swaggart had been caught in a scandal involving prostitution. The world was stunned. How could the man who had preached about purity and righteousness, the one who had led millions to Christ, fall so far from grace? His own words, which had once been so powerful and filled with conviction, now echoed back to him in mockery. Who will guard the shepherd? They asked. Who will hold accountable the ones who claim to speak for God? The scandal shattered the image of the perfect preacher. For the first time, people saw the man behind the pulpit, a man who was flawed, broken, and deeply human. Jimmy Swaggart, once the voice of salvation, was now a symbol of failure. Swaggart's fall was swift. His TV programs were canceled. His ministry faltered. His name, once synonymous with prosperity and divine blessing, became a byword for scandal and hypocrisy. Those who had followed him for years now turned away in shame and disgust. His wife, Frances, stood by him through it all, but even she could not erase the stain that had been cast upon their ministry. As the years went on, Jimmy Swaggart retreated from the public eye, but he could not escape the whispers. He could not outrun the shame. Though he had once been the most influential preacher in America, now he was a man with no audience, no platform, and no reputation. He struggled with guilt, self-doubt, and the overwhelming weight of his own sin. He began to seek solace in God's word, in prayer, and in the quiet moments when no one was watching. But even in his most private moments, the haunting question lingered. Could he ever be redeemed? In 1991, Swaggart took to the pulpit once again. This time, it was different. His voice trembled as he confessed his sins before the world. "I have sinned," he said, his words carrying the weight of a man who had been broken and humbled by his own actions. The world watched in silence as the preacher who had once stood tall and unyielding now bowed before God and the people. "I have fallen," he admitted, "but I believe in a God who can lift me up." The scandal, which had so nearly destroyed him, had given him the humility he had once lacked. In the years that followed, he continued to preach, but now his words carried a depth and sincerity that had not been there before. His message had changed from one of triumph and power to one of grace and redemption. Jimmy Swaggart would never regain the prominence he once had, but in the eyes of many, he had found something far greater: peace. He no longer sought the adoration of the masses. He no longer sought to build an empire. Instead, he sought the heart of God. The story of Jimmy Swaggart is not one of perfect redemption, nor is it a fairy tale where the sinner is magically transformed into a saint. It is a story of a man who fell, but whose fall became the very thing that led him to find true salvation. It is the story of a man who, after losing everything, discovered what it truly means to be restored. In the book of 2 Corinthians 12:9, Paul writes, "But he said to me, 'My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me.'" Jimmy Swaggart, like Paul, found that it was in his weakness, his brokenness, that God's power was most evident. His rise had been swift, but it was in his fall that he was truly humbled. It was in his fall that he began to understand grace, not as a concept, but as something that could lift him up from the ashes. And so, the question remains, what does this story mean for us today? We live in a world that demands perfection. We live in a culture that punishes failure and elevates success. But Jimmy Swaggart's story reminds us that even in the midst of our darkest moments, God's grace is still available to us. Even when we fall, we are not beyond redemption. We may not rise to the heights we once did, but in the brokenness, we find the true power of God. To those who feel lost, to those who have fallen, to those who have been broken by the weight of their own sin or failure, remember that redemption is not a destination, but a journey. Like Jimmy Swaggart, you may find yourself in a place you never imagined, but it is in that place where God's grace can shine the brightest. Do not fear your flaws. Do not fear your mistakes. Turn to the one who can lift you up from the dust. In the words of Jesus in John 8:11, "Go, and from now on, sin no more." The journey to redemption may not be easy, but it is one that is worth taking. The story of Jimmy Swaggart is a testament to the fact that no one is too far gone. You are not beyond redemption. In your weakness, His strength is made perfect. It is time to rise above the failures of yesterday and embrace the grace of today. You are not defined by your past. You are defined by the grace that covers you, the love that redeems you, and the power that transforms you. The story of Jimmy Swaggart is not merely a tale of scandal and redemption. It is a reminder to all of us that no matter how far we fall, God's hand is always there to catch us. In the end, it is not the rise to fame that defines a man, but the strength to stand again after he has fallen. Swaggart's life, marked by both brilliance and failure, tells us that in our weakness, God's power is made perfect. And that, dear brothers and sisters, is the greatest redemption of all.